Welcome to the C-suite strategy. Evaluate your every move, scale beyond. And our topic for discussion today is expenses to invest, refining talent, and cost strategies for growth. Your go-to podcast on strategy and growth. I am your host Prem Kumar. Yes, today we will explore how expenses to investment can be taken forward. A special welcome to all tuned to Power of Knowing Forums episode 234 on a LinkedIn live session. Today we have Nutan, who's a finance excellence and special projects head, partner uh, on a business trust side, delivering 3x turnaround growth, strategic planning, cost, and talent management is what she's been working on. And without further ado, let's welcome her to our podcast event. Hi, Nutan. Welcome to our podcast,
Hi,
ma'am.
Prem. Hi, Prem.
Hi. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So, Prem, it's interesting that you've called a finance person today to
Yeah.
talk on a topic of talent, especially when
Yes.
we know that a finance guy always comes with the critical cost strategies.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be a conversation. Thank you for calling me here today for this podcast.
Nutan, thank you. Welcome to our podcast. And a small intro about yourself, Nutan, and your journey so far.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am Nutan Manish Karawde. I'm a cost accountant by profession. But as I rightly put it on LinkedIn as well, that I'm a CMA with a lens beyond accounting. We all know finance for more than 3 decades now. I'm part of a big organization. Started with a very humble beginning. I now head special projects and business excellence, and I work very closely with the CFO. And many times, those assignments that help the organizational level finance initiatives. So that's a brief about me, Prem.
I think, thank you for that, Nutan. I think we have a second person in the whole of 234 episodes of a CFO coming and joining us and talking about finance, which is a very crucial point where every organization runs with the finance person's approvals. Most of the things are either delivered, implemented, and tested, right? So, from your leadership lens, what does cost transform into an investment in talent?
Uh, Interesting. The topic, I was a little amused being a finance guy. You're going to ask me to talk about talent, but if I look back, for decades we have seen as talent as it's called a light item to minimize. However, it's changing now, rightfully so, if I may say. So, for me, when you look at talent, I would rather look at it as a shift, as I call it, from looking at a line item which needs to be minimized to something as an asset that needs to be optimized. So, if you ask me, to me, talent is about optimizing. It's an asset that needs to be optimized. Very critically, if I put it, it's the change of metrics from cost per hire to what is the value per hire that is. So, if you ask me in simple terms, it's for me that uh, traditional shift of the way we look at talent, not as a cost, but a long-term investment.
Okay. No, I am completely zero on the finance side, where I don't know much of the pointers that you people think about, right? So how can mid-level managers advocate for investment? talent during budget season?
Uh, so very good question. I think um, having been in this industry for 3 decades, as I said, when you look at the shift, very critically, there are two, three aspects which I will touch upon. Is when you look at cost, and being a finance person, I will surely, because I'm sure there will be many finance professionals on this podcast today. Um, if you look at cost management, it is not about cutting budget from manpower. So for any line manager, um, I think the first thing and the three critical things which I will look at is you need to have defined strategies for your talent. You need to have very clear framework of implementation. And third, very critical, even if you're looking at cost, you need to have empathy just as leaders. To me, it's that culture which is very important when you look at talent. So if you're a line manager, to my mind, um, no knee jerk reactions for cost cutting. Just go down. It's not something like you can bring cost reduction by reducing the number of people. There is lots more in that space for one to work and bring and still achieve the cost optimization. I think my take would be this.
Wonderful. You have seen cycles of hiring and restructuring. What is the biggest mindset shift needed today?
So there are many, if I may say. However, the one or two which very prominently comes to my mind in this space of talent and cost is, um, it is very easy for one to go back and say, I want to reduce cost, I want to reduce people. However, uh, the main challenge or thing is, instead of investing into new resources, if you use your current resources to optimize, I have seen that giving more benefits in the long run. So that's one thing which surely comes to my mind when you look at this.
No, I think what you're saying is very important because I was told when I manage the practices side where resources is, you
Mm.
can get a new resource to organization, but bringing that resource to a speed where the existing resource is, it is a difficult process and it takes time, and the cost of bringing a person goes 3 to 4 folds because he'll take time, he has to adjust and understand the culture and all the other aspects of the organization. So I
Yeah,
think having people re-looked at inside the organization would help is what my understanding is with the way we are looking at cost structures. And what advice do you have for startups who see training as a luxury instead of a necessity? Because most of the people think training is a burden, security implementation is a burden, all these are cost centers, right? And you'll have to shell out before you look at the results. So your
true.
take on this point?
Very good question. In today's scenario, COVID and post COVID, we have seen a lot booming, where it is very interesting. It's also very critical that you get the right resource and train them rightly. Now, and I completely agree to the point that you said is the approach that we look at training typically is, you come out of your work, you spend some few hours outside the job, learn something, come back, and then you're again back into the same grind. Where I agree to this to a very little extent. However, what I have seen is, and if I take two critical examples, which is the need for us to be future ready, is technology adoption for digitization. You can't be away from a digitization that's happening around. Correct? At the same time, it's important that you have a right culture and the soft skills that is needed for it. Now, how do you bring this balance? Because as you are into the routine thing, you will have some set of skills that you have in inside time. You will be needing to do things differently today. I joined this organization way back as a stenotypist. I don't know if really that profession still continues. It's eroded. However, unless you upgrade yourself and take the right kind of training, upskill yourself, you will not be ready. So, the way to, for me, as I look at it, the golden connect is if you link your training sessions to what you want to achieve as your strategy. For example, if you want to take digital strategy, if you bring training of those digital aspects to the people, the end users, explain them, and link your training to the outcomes that is needed, you will see much more benefit into it. And it could as well mean to the soft skills section as well. It's very important to have this. So I think linking it to a desired outcome for the specific need for which you're training is going to take this to a longer way, is how I look at it. Prem.
Yeah, I think you're telling me in such a way that when the business looks at what exactly is the training needed and how it is going to achieve the business goals, I think that would be a game changer, is what you're saying, right?
Yes, yes, very importantly, because everyone wants to, everyone, I mean, it's not just you and me, everyone who joins an organization wants to give more.
Yeah.
They are ready to learn. How do you put these things together? Is where the success lies from a training part of it, I will say.
No training. I think when I handled the practices, I was head for India, Middle East, Africa regions, and I was handling a group of people in my previous a large organization, and every time we had to look at costs, we used to always say, do we need that skill? How many projects do we have in that skill? And these were the questions that were coming up, and saying whether we should look at, is there an online thing or an offline course which you can give and they can learn by themselves, and that motivated. So what we started looking at is, we started telling OEMs, if you are getting a new product, why don't you train the team so that they are ready for your products and services to uh, come into the market, and we have somebody ready. So most of the alliances that we looked as was poorly looking at product and training. You get a product, you need to give training, we'll implement.
Yes,
So that's how we used to look at. And
absolutely.
and coming to another point, how should business owners rethink performance space and bonuses post COVID? Because I think there is a lot of AI disruptions also there. Now, how do you look at this rethinking on performance pay?
Okay, now that's a very tricky area if you ask
Yeah,
me per se. But then yes, I mean, as I said, you're asking this question to a finance person who certainly has to keep the profits
yeah,
uh, in mind, and obviously talent and cost. I have seen, and I have heard, typically if I look at this response from people budget. Since we are
hmm,
talking of talent, let me bring that angle of people budget. And I have known of industries who are looking at a people budget in a very different way. So for example, um, if there is someone who is leaving an organization, instead of filling that, how do you optimize your work and bring in efficiency? So is there a way you can eliminate that work? Is
hmm.
there a way you can automate that work? And if is there a way to bring more efficiency? Now, how do I link it to performance pay? Obviously, when you're taking more work, when you're increasing your span, of
Hmm.
operations and getting more work within the same resources, you are not just optimizing for the organization, you're certainly adding more value. Now this more values surely is going to translate to a better profitability. And I'm sure in today's world, no organization who is having a better profitability don't want to share it with the teams. So if you ask me from a performance pay point of view, it's very cyclical. So from a leadership point of view, it's time that you bring in the change in your performance measures. As I said in the beginning, where I began, from cost per hire to what is the value per hire. If you try to optimize them and reward it back to the people, that not only motivates, in the longer run I've seen it benefiting for the organization as well. At this point, probably I will surely talk about one book, a summary that I recently read, which is from Bob Chapman.
Hmm.
His whole philosophy he actually evolves around care.
Okay.
Yeah, what he simply says is, if you care for your people, they will help you actually solve a lot of queries. And we have interesting incidences as we move into the podcast. Probably at some point I will share his experience. So the point out here is that if you link all these things together, bring in the change in the performance related to the, but the changes that is happening, you will go a long way. I hope this answers your.
Yeah, it does, because I'll take one reference pointer that you said is, uh,
Hello.
yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Nutan? I think there's a technical thing. Yeah, can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear. Hello.
Yeah, yes, we've lost your video. If you can switch it on. Yeah, yes.
Uh,
Okay, I can hear you now.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Some glitches
Yeah.
keep happening.
In
I guess.
that happens when there is a load on the internet bandwidth that happens while it is streaming, right? So
Yeah.
it is a challenge
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we have to keep
Yeah.
in
So
mind.
so
Your
I was
experience.
mentioning about that Bob Chapman's book,
Yeah.
where he says everybody
Yeah, I
matters
think
is one of the important aspects.
right.
Yeah, Prem.
Your point is valid when, yeah, where your point is valid when you take care of the team. I also have read somewhere saying that give your people the preference, they will give you the preference. I think that's one pointer, that I think if you value them, they give you value. What value you give is the value that you get, is what I understand. So as many words that you can put in your experience, how do talent strategies impact investor confidence or valuations?
Um, can you repeat this question, Prem? You are looking from an investor point of view, right?
I'm saying, how does talent
Yeah.
strategies impact investors' confidence and valuation? Because everything that has to come in goes into a valuation, and investor has to put in, saying that if I put, what is that I get in as well, right? So that is where I think the pointer that we want to talk about.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So before look at this question, let's say from a board point of view. Prem, am I audible?
You're audible. Yes, yes, you are. Yes, you are. I see there's a technical challenge that is happening from Nutan side. We lost her again. She'll join us. Give us some time where Nutan, we are waiting for Nutan to join back. Yeah, she's back here. Yes.
What is that?
Yeah, Nutan.
Hello?
Yeah, Nutan.
Yeah, I am sorry. I was not able to hear you, so I just wanted to confirm if I'm audible.
Yeah, you are audible. You are audible. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Fine. When you look from an investor point of view, and I'm here right now, if I look from a board, which is the first investor into your organization, I think in today's one of the important point which the board has realized is uh, you have to look at your talent as an investment, as an asset, and you need to groom them. So I'll give a very good example which I recently, when I heard Mr. Nitin Paranspe, who was the CEO of former CEO of Hindustan Liver, and he gave an instance which has left a mark on my mind actually, where he said he gave an example of a lean period where the company was actually the profits were going down, and it was somewhere during COVID or some time, and they wanted the CEO to think for a cost reduction measure. And they said it's a time that you go down and you 6 to 8% cost reduction is important. And that's where he said, taking reference of this example, he said they had orders in hand, they had everything that was needed to fill it, so they went ahead and did that. But the situation so happened that the order at the last moment got cancelled. The reason? The end customer lost the order. So they lost this order. Now it was a very critical situation. So for a normal situation, it wouldn't have been very difficult for the CEO to go back and cut down his manpower, because that was the first simple thing to cut down. However, what he said was, very importantly, they wanted to look at it very differently. He went back to the team and asked them the situation. And he told them, this is the situation. Can you go on a 4 week leave, non paid leave,
Hmm.
and help over this situation? Now, initially, there was obviously this was not something that would be easily accepted. However, people on the thinking agreed to it, and they realized that if you go and use this measure, you at least have the job. Each
Hmm.
one of them would have a job rather than 6 to 8% of them losing their job. They agreed to it. They use this time, the gap, to actually use it as a family time, knowing very well, rejuvenate, come back. Now, why this is important is, and the board needs to support these kind of initiatives. They got the cost reduction, they were with the CEO. However, the important and the critical part is the second part of it. He said it's not that this is a permanent solution, because situations like this may happen again. So, what is that solution, long term solution, the sustainable solution part of it that is going to help? Because next time something like this happened, I am not going to go back and tell them, can you go back on 4 week leave again? That's not going to be the solution. So, if you look from a board point of view, and the way this thing, they give the freedom to the CEO to explore these kind of experiments. Again, empathy and care, I think, which is very important in today's uh, the way we run our businesses. If you marry these two things, I'm sure there's a long term result which is going to benefit everyone. So my take on this is, and I'm sure any investor uh, is only going to feel good about the management who is driving the initiatives with empathy, because they know they're going to get more out of it.
No, I think what you said is you maintain the resources in the organization. One is that as a takeaway, which we looked at.
Yes.
The second takeaway is they didn't lose their jobs, right? So they were there, but we saved the cost of not getting paid. We asked them to take a unpaid leave, right? And that is where it does not affect their career. Also, saying that there is a break in your career, there is nothing that which will affect, and the call is to keep the talent with us and see how we can look at avenues where they can be redeployed because we did not get the project. That's what I think is what you are saying, right?
In
And
fact, yes, yes, Prem.
what's your take on quiet quitting trend, and it is a cost or a symptom for underinvestment?
This is very good question, Prem. Very, very good question, and thanks for asking this question, because as leaders, it's very important that we understand this behavior aspect. Very, very critical, because uh, and we've been hearing a lot about this. So I think my take would be, while performing your actions, do have that connect with your people.
Hmm.
Look out for those symptoms of change in the behavior pattern of your team. Spend more time with them. Have those conversations, open ended conversations with them, open conversations, talking about knowing their dreams, talking about the organizational team. How do you align both of them? And if you see a mismatch, how do you introduce things that will bring a balance into their activities? Because at the core of everything, and I have been maintaining that throughout the conversation, and I firmly believe each one of us want to give more and more to what you're doing. I have in my career, outwardly you might have seen people who don't want to perform, but if you dive deep into it, it's some of their past experiences that have actually triggered that kind of behavior. To my mind, behavior, understanding the behavior, understanding this, addressing, having authentic conversations, bridging that gap between the individual aspiration and the organizational aspiration is the key to this. Understand it and take a timely action is how I look at it.
Very important point, because quiet quitting is become a trend because they don't want, if you discuss also they are not heard. That's one pointer, because they quietly move out, just want to move out, right? So that is the trend that is going on with many of the people, is what I understand. What do you look at first? Resumes skill in the resumes, skills, potential, attitude, when we are hiring a scale, and why?
All three are important. To my mind, attitude would play the first part.
Hmm.
uh, Very important, uh, because maybe in my experience I've seen skill is something that you can acquire if you have the right mindset. So
Okay.
to my mind, first thing is, understand the attitude. Second critical thing is mapping the in culture, whether the in candidate fits into your culture or not, and this is very, very, very important. I know, in today's scenario, you really don't see people who will spend ages in the same job,
Hmm.
and that's quite understandable. However, people generally will not leave just because they want to keep hopping. There is still a connect, and I think if one bridges that kind of connect, uh, it will, it has, I have seen personally, help. It does help.
Okay. I would take another pointer where I want to understand is, if you had to
Hmm.
redesign talent cost strategies for a post
Hmm.
AI hyper learned business world, what's the
Hmm.
step one that you will start with?
First and the foremost, um, I think we shouldn't be fearing AI at all.
Yeah,
It is something that is a part of our life. We must accept it. There are goods and bads to both of it. However, if you are able to take the good, optimize, and use it, it will be your aid to a longer extent. The way I look at it. Um, Having said that, uh, what worked in the past will not work in the future unless you bring in the change that is needed. The change, the way I look at it, will happen twofold. One is in the skill. You need to understand that skill that is needed to adopt these AI tools. As a leader, and if I look as any matured organization, uh, as I said, a structured program will help, a structured framework to address the change management and help them upskill, align it to their work areas will be very helpful. And I have seen that being helping a many and even startups. Second thing is, we touched upon this quiet quitting the earlier question that you asked me. This generation wants to learn. Give them the opportunity to learn, give them the problem, allow them to solve it their way, and they'll come back with amazing result. How I look at it. So if you ask me, uh, frankly, post AI, what's only going to change is the way the skills, the way you adapt to the skills. As a culture, if you are helping your employees to adapt to this change, you would go a long way, is how I look.
I take your point because we'll have to see. My experience and my leaders have told me one thing is, if a person is not given a chance to try on his own, he will anyway not try anything afterwards. So you are blocking his way of experimenting. He'll fail. But if you are not allowing him to fail and not allowing him to experiment, not at the cost of the customer business, but there should be some pointers that we should test it across the uh, implementations prior going into the live scenario. So he has to do those kind of an experiment, not on a production environment. I totally agree on what we are trying to look at, but he has to test his waters. He has to look at what exactly is happening and how he can make, as you rightly said, he will come out with colors, flying colors is what I feel, Nuthan, right? With one decision around workforce costs that leaders usually
Hmm.
regret later. What's one decision?
Observation, and it comes so naturally, is when you have growth aspirations, any organization has, one area which I feel the mistake commonly which happens is when you're building a new line of business or a new growth diversion, the first mistake you do is you start building a new line in itself. You actually, to my mind, you should actually redeploy your resources into your those areas which is already established, those LOBs which is already established. You redeploy these resources, use that experience, use that expertise, because they have already seen failures, they've already seen how to work on that. They use that experience into building this new area. Will help two ways. One, It will help you minimizing the mistakes when you're doing something new. Second, you will have a motivated lot who you want to build, so you will start getting results much earlier than the new. And the third and a critical thing, because we are talking of cost, is going to help you not to increase the cost, because we all know that whatever cost strategies, in fact, there was a research done by BCG, and it tells that there are many organizations who alternatively have to bring in cost strategies every 3 years, and the success rate of strategies surprisingly is only 3 to 4% of them said that my cost strategies are effective. I think if you redeploy your resources instead of looking at from a zero budgeting for a new domain that you are entering, that's one big thing which I think we must certainly be mindful of, is how I look at it. Yeah, Prem.
Uh, there was some glitch again, I
Oh, is
feel.
it? I'm so sorry for that. I don't know very exactly.
Not a problem.
Did you get the point? I think my point is keeping it very simple. Um, Whenever you're building something new, need not be that you have to get new resources, build a structure. Use your current resources, those learnings, use them, and you're surely bound to achieve both your cost reduction, rather cost optimization, I'll say, and the benefits of that.
Yeah. How does refining a HR metrics from
Hmm.
a cost per hire to value per hire change the narrative?
Ah, I think that's one very good shift. And here I will say, as finance professional, when you sit across with an HR team,
Mm.
finance has to play a more stronger and a prominent role in this, because traditionally you have always been, looking at talent as a cost center. Correct.
Yeah.
And the very traditional metrics goes is, what's your cost per hire, what is the revenue per cost, where these measures are very important, because they help you compare, they help you look at how the trend is moving accordingly. However, if you actually look at a slightly different measure in terms of what is the value that is getting added,
Mm.
so converting from a cost to a value out of that investment, uh, beyond just revenue. And that could be many. If you look at it, like the example I was giving a while ago, when there is any person who is leaving the organization, the team comes together
Mm.
to decide, is there a way to automate these activities, is there a way to eliminate these activities, which means you are in a way working on the cost, adding more value from that cost. If you look at these small things uh, as your matrix, along with your cost per hire and revenue per hire, which is I will say a standardized way to measure, this is certainly going to be very impactful uh, measure than a cost oriented measure. Today we are looking at that as a talent. We have to be mindful of the matrix. Yeah.
uh, I think that pointer is becoming much more critical, saying what would be my cost if I am not able to bill, right? And when I hire, what would be the bench cost that I'll have to incur also, right? So that's, I think that's a major shift that is going on in the industry,
So,
right?
Prem here, I think as leaders, I will say it is important to change the narrative.
Hmm.
See, the narrative has to change from cost benefit to value benefit. If you look at what is the value loss of having or not having that person, that is the measure, I think, is the shift that I'm talking of. It's not going to be easy, because we have traditionally been, as I said, looking at manpower as a line to minimize. That shift mentally to bring in as an asset to optimize is that vocabulary change, which has a conscious change in leadership that we must talk about. I think that's the shift I am talking of, not of a cost, but of a talent, of a value. What value are you bringing to the table? We need to measure that kind of value that you're bringing to the table. It's not going to be easy,
Yeah.
but who wants to do easy things?
No, and finance and the way you look at the costs and the resources is always a key factor, right? So I think, how do you coach CXOs to view human capital as a strategic asset, not a fixed cost? Because that's what we've been discussing.
Yeah, yeah. Again, very good question. I think this is something which has been very thought provoking, and I will read out something. And the reason why I'm saying I will read this out is, we if you want your mind to train to have a different narrative, table and a board, and I will read it out for you, which said, and I read it, I had heard it from one of these senior CEOs. He said, we have very excessive emphasis on the hard aspects of talent. However, we have very inadequate focus on the very softer aspects of it. It's a very important point, um, when you look at it. When you're looking at your cost strategies, if you have to build your cost strategies, you can't ignore the aspect of behavior change. I'm bringing it from a different angle, not from a cost from here, and I'll take a little few seconds to explain what I mean out this is. Uh, it is important for everyone to understand that bringing in change is not easy. And I'll give you an example which is based on a study, and this study actually is eye opening. They did some study of 150,000 people across for 6 years in different countries. Out of this people, and it was purely on behavior and change. Out of this people's, approx 7,500 people had a history of a cardiac attack, which is life threatening. They had to bring only three changes. And what were the three changes? They had to bring better diet, regular exercise, and stop smoking.
Hmm.
You know what the study revealed? The study revealed that only 3% of them actually followed all the three changes that were needed. Imagine a life changing event, having gone through it, coming back from it, you can't bring that change. We need
I,
to understand that change is important. You
I
need
think,
to get people. Yeah.
yeah, I think what you are saying is we should take a real time example, right? So while we were in the COVID situation, everybody were clear in washing hands, okay, and having a mask, going, not going in public. Everybody thought about safety. As soon as it is relaxed, nobody wants to wear a mask now. It is a disturbance. You don't want to wash your hands. That's a
As
disturbance.
often as we did earlier. Yes.
In a day, we used to do about 5 to 6 times. You touch anything, wash your hands. Today, we touch everything, we don't have wash our hands. So, the point that I'm saying is, you made a very important point where you said only 3% followed, which is a life changing stuff.
Yes.
Because I think the importance of life comes when it comes to their personal thing, is what I felt. When I looked at COVID stuff, what I felt was, I want to live. So I am taking that safety. Unless it is not a life threatening stuff, people don't want to take anything.
In fact, even after life threatening, once you come out of it, there's only 3% who followed all three because all three were important.
Important.
And
And
only
that
50%
discipline
of them.
is what I think is important, I think. Yeah.
So Prem, the point here is, and why my message to the CXOs when you're thinking of human capital is, we spoke about skills, we spoke about performance pays, the change, we spoke about change in matrix. The fourth important element is allow people to bring in that change. Be empathetic, understand that change is the need, but as CXOs, it's our responsibility to allow to bring that change. Be empathetic with the fact that it's not going to be easy. I want to grow as an organization. I want 5x growth. I have my strategy in place. I have my strategic objectives in place. I know why it is needed. I've given it to the people. But have you understood that this change is not going to happen in a day? It is something which is slowly allow people to fail, allow people to get up, allow people to make those mistakes, allow people them time to change. I think that's the only message that I'm trying to give.
Very important point. Now, coming to that point,
Hmm.
we we know all we are talking about emotional intelligence that has to play here. What role does emotional intelligence play when deciding to invest or cut costs in talent management?
uh I will say very important, and I will I just read I just read one message today. Sorry. Okay. Okay, sorry. My mobile started. I just saw this message today, and I've saved it on my mobile. I keep doing it. It says, if you must say goodbye,
Hmm.
do it like a family. And
Okay.
there's a life example which says, before laying off his 70 employees, this CEO personally found them new jobs. I
Hmm.
think
Yeah.
nothing else to be said than this. When you look at emotional intelligence or emotional, it's about how you address, how do you connect, and how do you bridge that. It's the need, how do you address it? I think more so for leaders, and then for the people down the line. It's walk the talk for the leaders.
Yeah, I think that sets an example saying that emotionally we are connected. Maybe the organization does not have the business or the business line that we are looking at, but we don't want to lose you as a person. I think that's the message that we are looking at, with what.
Perfect.
And with that, what is a trend or an insight from India or global workforce landscape that everyone is ignoring, but it shouldn't be ignored? Anything like that?
I think the one that I covered a few minutes back when I said that when you're building your growth strategies, um, use your current talent.
Okay.
I will say that's one big thing to you. Second, um, care, empathy are not just words;
No,
they
I
are to
think
be
there is a
lived
lot
by
of
the
difference
leaders.
I take your point. I think I can add one thing is
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong in giving a smile at a stranger. That guy will think what happens, hey, why that guy did smile at me and do I know him? But the importance that you made him to smile is the important point. That is, I think, is one way we need to connect to everybody when we have a strong team. I think that's where I you should connect as a leader is what I feel, because when I was part of the large organization, which I've been talking on many of
Hmm.
the podcasts,
Hmm.
we used to take people on 6 months once as a process. We had a budget allocated for an outing. So
Ah.
we used to tell customers saying that this day none of them are available. I think we have one on-call setup which we will do, and if there's an on-call that is very anything that goes down, we will carry, but we will not give you high this one. We will ensure that everything is working fine and we don't affect your business. So that's how we used to do, and we never started looking at project discussions while we were in the outing space. We used to talk personal things, how is life, how's parents, how's things going around, what is that you're learning, and all this thing. But eventually, it used to happen is we used to get dried up on personal things and come back to office. And we used to start talking about, sir, in this project, I have this challenge, I need help. Because now that was a process that we always looked at people talking, saying that I need help. People don't ask for help, they struggle and they don't know who can help. These kind of break pointers helped me, at least in my that large organization, where I've built strong connections with my team members. And after serving for 13 years in that organization, came out in 2000, right? 2020, I came out. And still, that odd people who I've been connecting or the team that I've handling called me and asked, sir, I'm stuck here. Can you help me? Is there anybody whom I can talk? Is there somebody who's working in your circle? Can you help? That gives a lot of courage for them to say, I still can connect back to my leader. So that is one thing I taking your cue, saying that that is one thing that I learned. For finance professional listening in, what early signs should they watch that signal talent under investments?
um I think this is not just for any finance professional. It is for everyone around. If you look at it, um, build that communication with your teams.
Hmm.
And I take I it reminds me of two such initiatives in my organization, which I can really talk about. One is the Buddy Connect, and
Hmm.
others is reverse mentoring. It's not always that you are senior and you have to teach others, especially in this era. As the viewers might know, not know, but you and me know today, when we started to connect, uh, I found it little difficult, and my son immediately, my young who is just 20 years old, who came and immediately helped me set up the this call. So it's not always that you as a function head is always there to teach this thing. It's time that you can learn from them as well. If you have these open communications, the connect that is going to build is going to be very good. And through that connect, you are actually going to solve a lot of things. I remember, so I work in a domain which is excellence, which is so you have people who are working in core finance domain, and we are there to in a ways help them improve, because we can look at it from an outsider. Now this is not something that everyone is going to like. I mean, who wants someone to come and tell you, hey buddy, I think if you do this that you've been doing for last 10 years, if you do it differently, you may benefit. The first thing they look at it, oh really, have you ever done it once? So when you're looking at this, I think building that connect is going to help. So when I look at the way that you're this thing, the early signs would be, are your people communicating with you? Are they sharing with you what's happening around? Are you having that connect with them where they can come back and tell you, hey boss, sorry, I think I have goofed up?
Hmm.
If that kind of culture happens, it I think there's nothing else to really maneuver, because then things will fall. We have I will share something very recently. We keep having meetings, right? And then there was this kind of meeting which was happening every Tuesdays, particularly. And there is a set of 20-25 people who come regularly. They're supposed to attend that meeting, and they do. And when you closely observe, and I was observing this, and my CFO and me were having interaction because we look at change management very critically. And he said, Nutan, don't you think that we have increased the numbers, but my set of leadership or a particular set of team is not attending that meeting?
Hmm.
Now, if you look at it, it's a very small thing, right? It's a weekly meeting. It may happen that people may come. However, if you observe, and then we started connecting with them, and they said very uh, colloquially, what's in it for me? There are topics, probably I have concerns which I can't talk about in a public meeting. Now, it is for us two ways to look at it. One, probably there is a need to bring in change, that open communication is needed. How do you build that?
I think what you're saying is very important. Where we see is people are not heard is what I take as a pointer. Yes. And when they are not heard, they will not share their viewpoints also. That's one thing that I've seen. With that, what one final question that I would like to ask before we conclude is, what is the toughest call you have made where you had to balance cost cutting and people dignity, and what did you learn?
Um, okay. Um, Here, so I've been working on special projects. Now, core center is, and when it comes to cost, okay. Yeah, I think for a few
There
seconds
was,
you
yeah, there was
would
a
have lost.
lag. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So I was saying, when you, am I audible now?
Yes, yes, you are.
Yeah. Okay. So, in my experience, when I'm dealing with special projects, the ones with revenue increase are typically a little easier to handle. You give them more scope, you increase their span of control, you give them higher targets, you reward them in a better way. However, those assignments which are cost optimization assignments, and typically where you're looking at a lean structure, are the ones which are very critical. We are in a manufacturing organization where new manufacturing locations play critical role. How do you bring that shift to relocate oneself from one unit to another unit in a different, you can say, zone or a different branch? That's something which involves a lot of people. I think a lot of empathy. Uh, what, in my experience, I've seen when you handle these projectors, dealing with them, dealing with the people very empathetically, because they know here is someone who is sitting with them who tomorrow is going to go back and give a report to the management, which might say this job is not needed. Now, how do you have that conversations with them? How do you ensure that it is not going to take their job, but that it is going to actually enhance their job, because it's going to relieve them from what they have been doing? However, they are now going to do something different. I think that has been one area which uh, I have felt it takes a lot of toll on one as a leader, per se. However, when you look at those people when they are relocated, and I've seen when they reach out to me, that it was a thank to you, it was a very good call of the way you explained why that change is needed and how my family together supported me to do it. I think at the end of the day, you feel you've done a fairly good job. I think that's one example. Without naming a specific case, I will.
With that, I think we are at the fag end and we are on top of the hour also. I would
Oh,
like to summarize on what we have spoke about. We talked about cost transfers into investments. We spoke about
yeah,
table defining ROIs where people's strategies were hurt. On long-term growth, we spoke about investment in talent during budget freezes. Then we spoke about what is the biggest mindset shift needed today. We also spoke about
yeah,
training and how what is it called as at the moment. Training is called as a luxury or a necessity.
yeah.
That's what we spoke about. We spoke about COVID and AI assumptions pointers. We spoke about impact on investors' confidence and valuation. Also, we
Mm,
spoke about quiet quitting. I think that's a trend that is going on in the industry where people just move out quietly. And we also spoke very important point, which is what do you look in a resume? Skills, potentials, or attitude, which we discussed and we spoke, saying we all our understanding, you and me understood that it is the attitude more important than the anything in the resume and when you speak to people, right? And that's one thing that we spoke about. How do we look at cost strategies when redefining talent post AI era and the hyper learning? Okay, that's one step we spoke about, and we spoke about how HR can look at cost per hire and value per hire is one more point that spoke about. And finally, what is that we have to look at on under investment while finance professionals are listening to early signs and what they should look at signals for talent under investment. That's one last point that we spoke. And with that, I have summarized what I've taken as a pointer and a note here. With this, we would like to conclude our session for today. Then any pointers that you want to give before we conclude, and I say what is our next episodes going on to be. Over to you, Nutan. Nutan, if you have any pointers to be added as a last pointer before we
yeah.
conclude.
So, yeah. So, thank you, Prem. Thank you. You said it's almost fag end of an hour, and I really didn't even realize that we have spent these this 1 hour interaction. My only last, I think I've spoken a lot of things. My only last call to things is adopt a structured approach to whatever you're doing, aligning it to your strategies, bring a perfect balance into the performance outcomes and empathetic way of looking at it, care for your team as a family, and you are bound to see success. There will be upheavals, they are fine. You are a part of a VUCA world. If things are like a straight line, you are actually, it's end of a lifeline. So you need to have those upheavals in this. Embrace it, bring in the change. I think that's the key. Talent, very simply, is not a line item to minimize, it's an asset to optimize. I think
Wonderful.
that's
Talent is not to minimize, it is to optimize. Very important pointer. I think that I'll take as a closing statement with you. We have streamed this podcast around LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Hope you have found this discussion valuable. And thank you for joining us today. Our next episode is going to be our 235th episode on the 15th of April at 6:30 p.m., which is a Cloud Security Alliance podcast series that we are running, and we have leaders talking on IAM and cybersecurity and other related topics of cybersecurity, which we'll have it on the 15th of April at 6:30 p.m. Looking forward to see you all again, and good day. Bye for now. Thank you, Nutan. Thank you for being here, and it's an honor to have you here on the session. Thank you.
thank you, Prem. It's been a great conversation. Thank you.